Hello, hello. It is that time of year where I talk about the best books of 2023 and the worst books of 2023. Of course, it's just my opinion. It does not mean that I'm like, everyone should think the way that I think. This is just me. This is just what I interpreted as the best and the worst. Or the most enjoyable books to me and the least enjoyable books to me. So we're gonna go over those. Also, sorry about the lighting if it feels weird. It is 10:30 at night because this is when I'm awake now and I don't have a lot of time to film, or at least my free time. I have a choice between whether I want to read and whether I want to film and edit, and most of the time I choose reading nowadays. So right now I'm like, we're gonna get through the end of the year videos that I really want to make before it's 2024. You know, it's right around the corner. So also technically it kind of feels like morning to me, so yeah, I'm drinking coffee right now. Don't mind me. Good. Okay, let's talk about my least favorite, not because this is the most important books that I want to talk about. It's because the list is a lot shorter than the books that I really love from 2023. So the first one that I want to talk about is Prince of Dreams by Lisa Kleypas. I read this one in March as part of like this little project that I wanted to read all the Lisa Kleypases in 2023. It didn't happen. I still have books to go, but definitely going to be able to finish it in 2024. But Prince of Dreams, I don't think that there has ever been a possibility in my mind that I was like, Lisa Kleypas can write a bad book. But Prince of Dreams really ticked me off. It's actually the second book in like a little duet. It's like the Stokehurst series, and I actually read Midnight Angel like way down the line after I read Prince of Dreams. But Prince of Dreams just did not work for me at all. It has a reincarnation trope, and that's a trope that I really struggle with. This was such a convoluted mess. Not only was there a reincarnation trope, it was a marriage of convenience at first in present day. Or not really a marriage of convenience. He actually kind of purposely compromised the heroine because he didn't want anybody else marrying her. He goes through lengths, so many hoops and obstacles to get her to marry him, and then treats her abysmally once they are married because he's like, oh no, I can't like put feelings into this relationship. I'm like, dude, you just like went after her really hard and now you're treating her like shit. What are you doing? And then all of a sudden he goes into his past self, which was an ancestor of his, because apparently he's also reincarnated. So he goes into a past self. He was like a czar in Russia, and apparently had this wife in Russia. And so his present day wife, who he's treating badly, is also his past self's wife, who they were madly in love. So he actually falls in love with his like great 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 grandmother. Like he has all his present day memories, and then he falls in love with his great 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 grandmother, and then he comes back to the future, and then he realizes that his current wife is his great 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 grandmother reincarnated, and he's like, oh my god, we belong together. And I'm like, no, you fell in love with your great 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 grandmother, and now you come back and you're insta love with your current wife because they're supposed to be the same person, but they're obviously not. It was so strange and so weird, and I was like, I just didn't know that Lisa Kleypas could just write such a bad book. And I gave this one 2.5 stars, guys. I was just like, this just is too wild for me. It's too wild. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So yeah, that one was very disappointing. I just wasn't expecting to hate a Lisa Kleypas book. And like a 2.5 stars, that's not good. That's not good. So yeah, and 2.5 to me is like generous, because really I wanted to give that book 1, but it was Lisa Kleypas, so I was being nice. The next disappointing book, which I'm not going to go into great detail about because I've already talked about it so many times, Fourth Wing. I really was looking forward to a new epic fantasy in 2023. I was super excited whenever I read the synopsis at the end of 2022. It was one of my most anticipated reads, and when it came out, I was just expecting like this amazing fantasy. And I feel like it was a personal preference issue where I like my fantasies to be a certain way. This fantasy felt a little too contemporary with dragons. Like it felt, but I understand why they did it. I understand why Rebecca Yarros was writing the fantasy in that way, because it's a little bit more accessible to people who maybe don't normally read fantasy. It's like intro level fantasy to me, and I just didn't feel like a lot of effort was put into the world. I felt like it was just a lot of generic things were happening, and the college aspect really felt like a boarding school. It just felt a little bit high school, you know? So I just was looking for something a little bit more mature. I was looking for dragons to feel a little bit more majestic and feared, and I felt like there was a weird flip-flopping between these are really powerful and dragons and creatures to be feared, and also, yeah, let's make fun of them. Let's disparage these dragons and have people just be not afraid to like go after dragons and like kill them because they look weak or stupid or small or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know, it just does not, it's not consistent for me. Like the lore behind dragons just is not consistent. There are plenty of writers that have done dragons much better in fantasy, and obviously I think of Sarah J Maas, which I'm only a recent fan of. I haven't been a longtime fan of Sarah J Maas at all. I just recently finished the Throne of Glass series this past year, and the way that she writes dragon riders in her fantasy just feels so much more cool and epic, and I don't know, I just like it. I just feel like there's a depth to the creatures and a depth to the bond that isn't just a little superficial and hey, this dragon gives me powers. Like I felt like the heroine didn't have a lot going for her on her own until she bonded with the dragon, and then all of a sudden now she's powerful, which of course she is. So anyway, I just didn't really love it, and also the love interest, their whole romantic relationship in Fourth Wing just didn't work for me. The hero was fine. He was a very generic, dark, brooding hero, but I just didn't feel the connection, like the real connection between them. It was just okay. So it just was very disappointing for me. I did not enjoy it, so I will not be continuing with that series. Okay, so I'm gonna lump these next two with each other because they're in the same series by the same author, obviously. Reckless and Hopeless both were disappointing reads for me because I enjoyed Flawless and Heartless so much. I even reread Flawless and Heartless this year and Powerless just to see like, okay, what changed? Like what's going on in the series? Because after Heartless, I felt like the books kind of got progressively just not as good in my mind. The ratings started getting lower from Heartless on. So what I think happened for me while reading these books is that I really liked Flawless. I thought that the relationship was really fun. I thought the way that, you know, the relationship developed was very true to the characters. In Heartless as well, I thought that that relationship was just like chef's kiss perfect. I'm a sucker for a single dad situation. I thought the nanny trope was handled really well. The opposites attract. Their personalities just fit really well together. They were so opposite, but they meshed really well together. And then in Powerless, one of my gripes with Powerless was that it just felt like I really liked the friends to lovers aspect, but when they actually started getting into a relationship, I felt like the sex scenes were written for a different type of book and just inserted into that book. And that's really the theme that I saw happening within the series, was that everyone was clamoring for this series after Heartless because they were like, oh my god, this book was so hot. Yes, it was. Cade was a dirty talker. Willow is snarky and quirky, and she had nipple piercings and all that jazz, so she was a little wild, but like it fit for their characters. And I feel like Elsie Silver was like, oh, I gotta one up that. I gotta have dirtier talkers. I gotta have kinkier things in there because that's what the people are expecting. But the thing is, it works for Heartless because it fits those characters. And then she's having characters in Reckless who, on every other scene, it's presenting like this wholesome family situation and another like really great opposites attract situation as well. And then all of a sudden they're in the bedroom and he starts like calling her his dirty little slut, and I'm just like, wait, what the fuck? I just don't picture this hero talking like that. It just does not fit his personality. He has not telegraphed that he is in any way into this stuff, and it just came out of nowhere. Again, it just feels like the author was just like, I have to insert the ultra sexy dirty talk, I need to one-up myself things in the book. So it just made the relationship feel a little bit more superficial. And the same thing goes for Hopeless. The heroine was like almost a sex addict. It was crazy though. I just didn't think that it fit at all. I didn't feel like the sexual relationship and the emotional relationship were matching at all for Reckless and Hopeless. It just was not a good fit. Another gripe that I had about Reckless, the actual situation, was a secret baby situation. And it was quite unbelievable that the hero, who was very involved with this family, would have zero idea that this woman who he had slept with in the past all of a sudden wound up pregnant and had a baby, because like she went through her entire pregnancy and like almost a year of this baby's life when he just did not know that she was pregnant at all. And I was like, that's just too unbelievable. I just felt like I couldn't get past the hoops that Elsie Silver had to maneuver around to make the hero not know that she was pregnant. It was just a little bit too much for me. It would have been better if he would have discovered it while she was pregnant, honestly. it would have been better because it would have been more believable that he found out sooner. So that was another gripe that I had. But yeah, Reckless and Hopeless just were very disappointing. They're very meh, very meh. I still stand by Flawless and Heartless being the strongest books in the series, like a 5-star and a 6-star. And then the rest of the books in the series just very meh. I just didn't like them, or I didn't like them compared to the first 2 amazing books. 2 more. So this one's just a little funny one. I really expected to love this book, but only because the cover was so beautiful. So I expected To Love a Dark Lord by Anne Stewart. Sorry, trying to get, let's just a close up of this beautiful cover. So To Love a Dark Lord is a historical romance that I've been having on my shelf for a while. Anne Stewart also has other historical romances that I have read that she published more recently, and I did like them. I read them like 10 years ago, and I did like them. So I don't know. I just was like, this cover is beautiful, it has to be good, and also I've read books by this author and I really like them. I hated this book. There was no chemistry between the characters and everything that they did not make sense, which I guess is a little typical for books that were written, when was this written, 1994? Maybe it's typical of the 80s and 90s books for characters to behave like super irrationally, kind of like soap opera level irrational, you know? So yeah, it wasn't good, and I'm very sad because it's one of my favorite historical romances that I have on the shelf. And the last one I have on this list is Unravel Me by Becca Mack. This is another case of this series, like the first book I really liked. I think the first book is Consider Me. And I really like this one, especially because I started gravitating towards, like this year I started gravitating towards softer and cozier books. I wanted like away from the angst and the drama, because a lot of authors were pushing my limits with angst and drama, with them being just like over the top and too messy, and I just didn't love it. So whenever I picked up Consider Me, I was like, oh my god, I really like this. This is soft and sweet. The hero's adorable. But there is a disconnect with this author's humor and mine, or my enjoyment of this author's type of humor. It's too much. And the problem is, it happens in every single book. Like, all her characters basically have the same sense of humor. They do the same types of jokes. And I have likened this in the past to a Friends type of like slapstick comedy. And it works. Like, I love Friends. Don't get me wrong. I love Friends. I love watching that series so much. But like, I'm reading this book, but it reads more like a sitcom. Like, you're trying to make me laugh, but I'm like, do people really behave like this, like in real life? Probably not. So when I read Unravel Me, the story, I like really liked the premise of it. And I really like these big, soft, lovable heroes, like, so much. But the situations, like the way that they talked to each other and they stammered and they had like word vomit and they're like, oh my god, did I say that out loud? And so much tripping and falling into each other's arms and craziness. And I was just like, oh, I was just tired of it. So I was just like, I was hoping for more. I was hoping that she would learn and grow as an author and not be so copy and paste about the formula of her books, because they really are very copy and paste characters, copy and paste like themes, copy and paste jokes. It was just copy and paste situations. And I was really hoping that she would just kind of grow out of it and give me something a little bit more tailored to the characters, and it didn't happen. So I didn't really enjoy this one, unfortunately. I don't think I'll continue with the series. I think that maybe, you know, in a year or two, maybe I'll pick up and try another one of her books and see if her writing style has changed, because that does tend to happen. Authors do change their writing style sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't happen. I feel like Kristen Ashley is one of the examples where I liked a couple of her books, but again, the more and more you read from this author and the more and more she does not change, the books just feel very repetitive. So I stopped reading her because her writing style did not change at all. Her writing style is consistent, consistently annoying. Anyway, let's move on to the books that I like the best. So this is going to pretty much go in order of the month that I read them in, because that's how I made my spreadsheet. One of my heavy hitters, and I can't believe that it feels like I read this book so long ago, and I only read it in January, 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago. Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent is the second book in the War of Heart series. Daughter of No Worlds is the first book, and I had read that one. I think I read it like December 31st and like on into January. So anyway, I binged this series, and I just really, really, really like this series so much. I know that everyone really likes Serpent and the Wings of Night. I don't dislike that series, but I really love the fae elements in this series so much. I feel like the world is very creative. I feel like it was very cohesive, and I felt like she had such a great grasp on where the story was going from the very beginning. And she tied all these elements in so well, especially in this book because it has a dual POV. And you don't really know what's going on because you have the same POV from book 1, and you have this additional one that you're like, who is this person? We don't even know why they're important in the story, but they're there. And the way that she ties in those two stories together to make a cohesive, it was great. I was like, you did it. You did the damn thing. And it was amazing. And I was very emotional towards the end of this book where you start piecing things together and like, this is why it's relevant. This is what's happening. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it was just mind blowing. So I gave this book 6 stars. I loved it. It's still my favorite book in the series. Book 3 was still really great, but I don't think anything can beat like that wonderful tie-in and the way that she melded those two POVs. It was just perfect. I loved it. It was so good. The next one, of course, is The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. Love this book so much. It's probably my favorite contemporary of the year because Ryan Shea is such a great example of like the perfect book boyfriend without being too perfect. He had his flaws. In the beginning, he was a little bit rude to the heroine in the beginning. He did not want a roommate and he was rude to her. He wanted her out of his space, and then it turns into a fake dating situation. So he kind of has to get close to her, kind of has to get to know her. And he is so attentive in the way that he just pays attention to little things about her and just does them. Like the little things that you're just like, oh wow, that's very thoughtful. I mentioned that book that I really wanted to read and you just picked it up on the way to work like it was no big deal. But it meant something to me. Like he would do little things like that, you know, that was like, oh, it was no big deal to go out of my way to do something nice for you. And he did so many nice things for her that are small when you think about them, but in the grand scheme of things, it showed just how much he cared about her. And I think that Liz Tom Ford did such an excellent job with showing and not telling when it comes to the development of their relationship. You can just really see it grow and develop. It was beautiful to watch. I love The Right Move. It was fantastic. Then we have The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacey Reed. Such a fantastic Tarzan retelling. Like it has a bit of an unbelievable plot, especially when you take into consideration the heroine. So the heroine's background is that the mother was suffering through many births, not producing a son. And her husband mistakenly believed that she had finally given birth to a boy. And instead of correcting him, she was like, let's just make him believe that I just had a boy. I need to recover. Like, I just can't go through another pregnancy. The doctor says it's going to kill me. So like, I just can't suffer through any more tensions, you know, because he's like really adamant about having a boy. So the mother intended to let him know like soonish that, hey, it's actually a girl. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, but this is why. And she ends up by not ever telling the dad. And so our heroine, Jules, has been masquerading as a boy for all of her life. And she definitely enjoys a lot of aspects of being a boy. She has gone to university. She's following in her father's footsteps in psychology. And they get this opportunity to go and talk to this duke. He was a long lost duke. He got lost in the Canadian wilderness when he was 18, and he's finally been discovered and he's come back, and the mother's very worried about him and has heard about Jules's father and contacts him and is like, I need you to come see what's wrong with my son because I need him to be perfect. The queen wants to throw a ball for him and I don't want him to get thrown in an institution. Like, I just need you to fix him. Her heart's in the right place, but she goes about it in like some, just, I don't know, seems a little unfeeling, some of the things that his mom's doing. But whenever Jules meets James, oh my God, I love it. I love this primitive type of man that Stacey Reed has created because since he was in the wilderness, he has enhanced senses and stuff. He immediately smells that she is a woman. And she knows that he knows, and they're in a room with people, and she's like freaking out, like, oh my God, can he tell that I'm a woman? Nobody has ever guessed that I'm a woman, but can he tell? It looks like he can tell. It was such a fantastic first meeting. I loved it. It was so great. The way that they both had this secret and they could share it with each other. Like, they found comfort because they could be who they wanted to be in front of each other. And I really liked that. I thought it was well done. Well done. There was a couple things that I didn't like about it. I thought that some things could have been improved or needed some fleshing out, especially Jules and her father's relationship and how that resolves and stuff. I felt like that could have used a little bit of work, but otherwise the romance was just so good. It was just so good. Stacey Reid's so good. I love Stacey Reid. The next book is The Coldest Winter by Brittany Cherry. This is such an emotional read as well, and I wasn't expecting to read a book where the characters stay the age that they are when the book starts. And the reason being, I've read Brittany Cherry books in the past, and sometimes she has characters where they meet in high school and then we have a time jump and then they meet again as adults. So I was expecting for there to be a time jump, but she does keep the characters to be this college, like he's 18 but in high school and she's like 19 in college. So there's also a taboo relationship where she's a student teacher at his high school. And he had gone to a college party and they had slept together. So she's like, oh my God, I could lose my spot, you know, being a student teacher over here because I was inappropriately interacting with a student, even though she didn't know at the time. And it turns out to be the most emotional book because both of them have lost parents. She's lost her mom years ago. She's a lot more emotionally equipped, you know, to handle those feelings of grief. But the hero has only recently lost his mom and he's going through it. And the way that she helps him through stuff is so amazing. And I also have to always, every time I talk about this book, have to shout out Starlet, who is the heroine's dad. He has like a handful of scenes, but he steals them because he is such a great character. I love him so much. I would read a book just about Starlet's dad. I love him. He was amazing. So yeah, Brittany Cherry, she's an emotional writer. She made me emotional. It was fantastic. I love it. I'm gonna kind of lump these two together. They shouldn't be lumped, but I'm gonna do it just because there's so many books that I have to get through. I loved Six Scorched Roses and Slang the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent. Both of these stories are standalones in her Crowns of Nyaxia world, so they are connected to the Serpents and the Wings of Night. Completely standalone. You don't have to read them to understand anything that's happening in the series that she's currently writing. They're just a nice addition. And in my opinion, they're stronger books than the actual series, or at least the first two books in the series. I just feel like they're a more cohesive story. Some of the things in book one, The Serpents and the Wings of Night, don't make sense to me, or they drag a little bit, or they remind me of other books and I'm like, it doesn't feel like the most original thing. But Six Scorched Roses and Slang the Vampire Conqueror as standalones felt like such great fantasy books. Six Scorched Roses is a novella, and she does such a great job with using like good time management, making the book feel like not like something that she was just like trying to race to the finish line because it was a short book. She told a really great story, a really believable love story, and I thought it was fantastic. And then Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, I thought the heroine and the hero were just so good. It was such a good, it wasn't enemies to lovers. She was undercover, like he didn't know that she was his enemy. And the way that this forced proximity makes her understand her enemy a lot better to the point where she starts to fall in love with him. That was, I mean, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that. That's what I want in a romance. That's what I want in an enemies to lovers romance. I feel like a lot of people try to do enemies to lovers and it just does not work out. Like they don't feel like true enemies, but this felt real. And I also felt like it was super believable with the situation that she kind of grew up in. She kind of grew up in this cult, and that informs a lot of her current opinions. And then she enters into his world, being like this undercover priestess, seer in his army, his conquering army. And then she starts discovering a lot of things that she didn't know about. So yeah, I thought these two were fantastic. So I gave them both 5 and 6 stars. Loved them. Okay, we have entered our fanfic era. In earlier 2022, I picked up my first Hermione fanfic, which was Manacled. A very dark and emotional read. Very long, drawn out, deep, dark, depressing story, but beautiful, beautiful. It hurt. It hurt, but it was amazing. It was amazing. And it kind of scared me from picking up some other fanfics just because I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to read anything like Manacled again, and I just didn't think that anything else could top my feelings for Manacled. So I went a whole year without reading any fanfic. And then finally in, April, May, I decided, okay, I'm going to try some more fanfics. And I started seeing some recommendations on TikTok for fanfics, and Measure of a Man was one of those that they were just like, this is one of my favorite depictions of Draco Malfoy as an adult. And it's a very long book. It's actually longer than Manacled, if you can believe it. It is a enormously long book. I would like to think of it as more of an epic because it's not just a Hermione romance. There's a lot of attention to detail with Hermione's other relationships. I would say that Hermione is like the main character. We're in her point of view. And we get to see a lot of her relationship with Harry, a lot of her relationship with Ginny, and she has girlfriends. I really love this for this version of Hermione is she has a strong girl group that surrounds her. They have girls' nights all the time. Pansy is a part. I just love the way that they interact. So I'm actually interested in all of their lives, and since the book's so long, we can take the opportunity to actually be invested in all those side characters' lives. So it's not just a Hermione fanfic. It's a little bit spread out. You know, I can see a lot more of the world. It feels more epic because I'm interested in these side couples as well. But yeah, Measure of a Man also made me cry for very different reasons. And it kind of touched on a little bit of a personal note because Hermione's a healer in this book. She's been approached to take care of Narcissa Malfoy, who is having like the wizarding equivalent of Alzheimer's. And so that felt a little personal because my grandfather had Alzheimer's. And so like I know how devastating it feels when, you know, a person comes down with that type of disease. And at first she doesn't want to take this assignment. She's just like, I just don't think it'd be a good idea. We have history, you know, I just don't think it'd be great. But she finally does decide to take the case, making sure that Narcissa has to follow every like thing to the T. One of the things that Hermione does is she has to cook all of Narcissa's meals. There are certain things that she's like, you have to eat these things because certain things will exacerbate the disease. So I'm going to cook for you. And that gets her into Draco Malfoy's house and she meets his son, Scorpius. The relationship with Scorpius and Draco is just such a pleasure to watch unfold because he's the type of dad in the beginning of the book where he's very hands-off because that's how he was raised, is in the beginning, you know, the mothers usually just take care of the sons when they're very young, and then whenever the boys are old enough, kind of like in old aristocracy days, the kids were like not seen and not heard. They were in the nursery and stuff, and then once they're old enough to have interest and be a little bit interesting, then the fathers would take interest in them and, you know, show. So anyway, he's just kind of emulating what he's known in the past. And his wife Astoria in this book has passed away. And so the way that Scorpius longs to just know his father is so heartbreaking. And Hermione being kind of that bridge in that relationship and also having her own new forming relationship with Draco because she is taking care of his mother was fantastic. I loved it. Fantastic. Love Draco Malfoy in this book. So this book was a 6-star for me. Then I picked up The Disappearances of Draco Malfoy. Guys, this is a Deathly Hallows retelling, basically. What if the moment where, sorry if this is spoilers, everybody should know this by now, but what if when Draco goes to kill Dumbledore before anybody else gets there, he decides, yeah, I'm just not even gonna try. I'm done with this. Is there a way that you can protect me and my family? Because I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a killer, but he's kind of holding my family over my head. Like, what can I do? And Dumbledore's like, yeah, we can help you there. And literally puts the Malfoy family in hiding. Draco kind of becomes part of the trio in a roundabout way. And I really like this because now he's with them looking for Horcruxes. And the way that he's incorporated into the story and the way that it changes the story was fantastic. And in my opinion, at the end of this book, I was like, this is kind of a better story than Deathly Hallows. I love the addition of Draco Malfoy. And I think that is a little bit, you know, selfish of me because I never liked the Hermione and Ron pairing. They just don't feel like they go together to me at all. Draco and Hermione is a much more interesting relationship from a romance standpoint. I love this enemies to lovers and a reformed hero, like somebody who was truly like raised to be awful, seeing the light and trying to repent and deserving this wonderful heroine. Like, I love that. I love that so much, and it was perfect. It was so good. She does so many interesting things. This writer does so many interesting things with the story, and there's just a lot of it that I was just like, that was a more interesting use of this magical item than J.K. Rowling did. So anyway, it was fantastic. I loved it. I have these two fanfics further down to the bottom, but since we're talking about fanfics, we're just going to talk about them. The next one, which is probably, I might, since I reread it 3 times this year, have to put it in my #1 spot of my favorite fanfic that I read this year. Remain Nameless was the perfect warm and cozy romance that I have been searching for this whole year. when I started to feel a little bit lackluster with the books that I was getting in regular romance. That's why I started turning to fan fiction. And I was like, specifically like, please, I want some recs for soft and sweet books. Remain Nameless is the perfect thing. I love it. It's cozy. It's wonderful. The way that the feelings are described, like, what is this feeling? Oh my God, am I having feelings for this person? It was just so adorable. So adorable. And the relationship, or the book, follows the relationship over the course of like 2 years. So like it's such a believable progression. And I loved it so much. I loved it so much. So the premise for this one is that Draco has been suffering from PTSD. He's also recovering from like this potion addiction because he used to take potions to help him sleep at night, became addicted to it. So he's like a recovering addict and he feels just very depressed. Life is lackluster and he's having nightmares. He cannot sleep. He has this routine. In the morning, he goes to this Muggle coffee shop and normally he goes like at 7 on the dot a.m. And this morning, since he couldn't sleep, he decided to go there early. So he gets there at 6. And who does he see when he's there? Hermione Granger. She's running in to get her coffee and then running out. Does not see him. And this one non-interaction, because he doesn't even say hi to her. She doesn't notice him. Like nothing happens between them. She just notices her. This one interaction has sparked this new life in Draco. Draco who, like, his world was gray. Absolutely gray. He had no joy for life, nothing to look forward to. All of a sudden, he's like, well, what would happen if she did see me? Like, what would she say? Would she like come up to me and like spit at me and stuff? Like, he just becomes kind of obsessed with what would happen if she sees me. So he starts going there purposely early in the morning just to see what would happen when she finally sees me. And that's how this friendship starts between Draco and Hermione, and it becomes a friends to lovers romance. And it was so freaking sweet and good, and I love it so much. It just makes me smile thinking about it. So good. Loved it. The next one is Wait and Hope. Whoa, this one was great too. Just such a different story. The premise is that Hermione and Draco have been married for years, but something happens and Hermione ends up in the hospital. And when she wakes up, she has lost all memory of being married to Draco, of this current version of Draco being like amazing and amazing enough for her to want to marry him, and her friends all like him. And she's just like, what in the hell is happening? This is Draco Malfoy we're talking about. I'm not married to him. This was such an incredible book because I felt for Draco so much, literally looking at his wife who he loves, and she doesn't realize the shit that they have been through to get them to this point. To her, he is still that annoying, evil bully from Hogwarts. And it kills him inside. And it was such a good one. It was such a good one. So I love Wait and Hope too. It was great. Fanfics were killing it this year. At least the ones that I was picking up, I had a lot that were gems and just really filled me with great joy. And that's all I want in a book, is to fill me with joy and happiness and giddiness while I'm talking about it. Like, I want to feel this way when I'm talking about books all the time. And those are doing it for me. So yeah. Great fanfic year. Loved it. The next one is Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. This was a new historical romance writer to me. Crystal actually discovered her. And again, just such a fantastic, simple story. And I really liked pretty much the evolution of the hero was really believable to me. He was presented as this devil-may-care character who has no responsibilities. He feels very flighty. He keeps getting into debt and fights. And his sister's best friend asks for him to be her fake fiance so that she can try to get custody of her kids because her late husband's sister is trying to get custody. And there's some law that kind of stipulates that the children are in the care of both of them, but she doesn't want them to have claim on them at all. So anyway, she needs to present this front of like, we're a happy, healthy family. We have a good father figure. Like, don't take my kids away from me and send them to this woman. So he has to kind of clean up his act, and what starts off as like this fake persona of him being an upstanding guy turns out like he just needed a reason to stop acting like a fuckboy pretty much. And I loved his evolution of just like this kind of rascally character to this very protective and insightful and sweet and warm and loving man. Like, it was just so great. So great. I loved it so much. Again, have I said that I'm a sucker for single dad type of or I'm a sucker for a single parent trope where the love interest who comes into their lives is great with kids. I absolutely love that. I eat it all up. Love it. Then I read Strange the Dreamer, which was also a recommendation from Crystal for my Patreon exclusive videos. And oh my God, I know Laini Taylor is not a new author, but she was new to me. And whenever I read Strange the Dreamer, I was like, this is what fantasy is. This is such a cool and unique, I've read nothing like this. It was amazing. It was so amazing. Like, I want this level of fantasy in my romanticies. I really kind of dislike that. I don't know why, but I want my straight up half and half. We're going to give you just as much romance as we are fantasy. I want the fantasy elements to be this great too. I want a wonderful romance and I want a wonderful fantasy element. And that's what I'm missing when it comes to romanticies, and why they're disappointing me is the author goes super hard on like the steaminess of the book and they forget about the fantasy. And I'm like, why are you even writing fantasy? If you want to be lazy and not build a world, just do paranormal, okay? But no, fantasy's like the it girl right now, so we gotta do fantasy. But like, they don't even care about writing an interesting fantasy world. And I'm just like, ugh. But Laini Taylor can do this. It's just not fair. It's just not fair that all of them can't be this good. I can't write a fantasy, so I'm not one to talk. But I mean, like, the authors who are attempting to write fantasy, you know, just reach for the stars. That's all I'm asking. So yeah, Strange the Dreamer, it's a duet. And it was fantastic. I normally don't like duets because I'm like, does the story really need, you know, 2 separate books? Or are you just trying to like milk it? But no, the story does need that much to flesh it out, and it was fantastic. It was so good. Loved it. So Strange the Dreamer, fantastic. Love. Now I just put one book by Anne Gracie on my favorites list, but like pretty much I loved the Meridew Sisters series. Those were so good, and the Chance Sisters series. I loved all of them. They were all between a 4.5 and a 5-star, all of them. And I just can't really pick one. You should just read Anne Gracie. If you're looking for more historicals and you haven't read her before, she's been writing for years and I just recently discovered her, so I'm late to the party. But if you haven't read her, like, you need to read her. She just writes such solid historical romances, and each story is so different. So different. Like, I don't know. I was always surprised when I started the next book in the series and I'm like, oh, we're doing this? Like, this is just completely like a scenery change. Like, oh, it's so good. So yeah, Anne Gracie is one to watch. I love her. Okay, 2 other related books are Hyacinth and Selena. So this is a series by Minerva Spencer. The first book is Phoebe. I didn't like Phoebe as much. There was a lot of kind of miscommunication and lots of instances where the hero and the heroine were purposely trying to be hurtful toward each other because they were misunderstanding the other's intentions. So they were like, well, he's gonna hurt me, so I need to hurt him first. And I didn't love that about Phoebe, so I just kind of pushed through, and I was really interested in the sisters. I'm glad I continued because I really loved Hyacinth and Selena. Very different stories as well. Hyacinth is first. Hyacinth is masquerading as a boy. She is a really good card player. So when she gets the opportunity to go in London, she puts on her little boy costume, and she's been masquerading as a boy like in her village for a long time. Her parents don't know of it, obviously. But this is a way for her to actually win money because her family's destitute and all the siblings are trying to figure out ways to earn money. And she's like, well, I can do it this way. I can bet big in London and I can take home a lot of cash. So she gets to this really cool gaming hill, and interestingly enough, our hero, who is a duke, takes a fancy to this young man that comes in and starts like wiping the boards with them. And he's like, oh my God, I didn't expect much from this little runt who can barely grow a mustache, but like, he's a damn good card player. And so it's almost like a friends to lovers romance where he becomes really friendly with Hyacinth, who I forgot what her boy name is. And I love how he eventually discovers that she's a woman, obviously, and then kind of plays along, like doesn't let on like, oh, now I know you're a woman. He like lets her keep doing it, and he's like waiting for her to slip up, and it's such a fun read. I really loved it. And Hyacinth is almost, she's a little neurodivergent. She feels very neurodivergent, so she does not pick up on a lot of social cues, especially romantic cues, when they kind of start happening between them. And I just really like the way that the author kind of balanced the romance with Hyacinth just not being a person that was looking for love, and the way that her feelings started to change for her friend, the Duke. So I really like that. That was really interesting. Then Selena was a sister who was like the belle of the ball. She was one that they expected to marry well because she's the most beautiful. And she feels a little superficial like in the other books, and her story kind of takes a turn. because she ends up by kind of running away from London for reasons we won't talk about. And then she decides to masquerade as a housekeeper because she needs a job for money. And she ends up at this house of this, he might be a marquis, he might be an earl. He's an aristocrat. And a year ago he had a carriage accident and now he's blind. So it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast trope where the beast can't even see that beauty is beautiful. And she is an aristocratic lady masquerading as the help and doing all these menial tasks that she's never even done before, and also dealing with like this beastly man who's in a terrible mood all the time because he just hates life, you know? And it's such a good story. So yeah, those are fantastic reads as well. Love them. The covers are terrible. I will say that. Like, God, actually, now that, yeah, I'm gonna recover them because I want these physically because I really love these books, but I don't want to purchase them because I hate them. I hate the covers. Then I really loved Hideaway Heart by Melanie Harlow. This was another just very simple contemporary story. Like it's not doing like anything like mind-bending. It's just a solid story. The relationship is solid. I really like the isolation that the characters feel. So the hero is a former Navy SEAL. He owes a favor to one of his friends that was also in the Navy with him. And this friend calls him up one day and is like, hey, I need to cash in my favor. My sister, you remember I talked about my sister? Well, actually, she's also this country music star. You may know her stage name is this. And I forgot what her stage name is. And apparently she wants to vacation. She wants to get away from all the hustle and bustle and stuff. And she just wants to be alone and vacation. But like, she doesn't want to take any security with her. And I just don't think it's safe. I need you to look out for her because basically she's kind of vacationing close to where the hero is. So he's like, I don't want to do this, but I guess I will. So he is this bodyguard that is absolutely not wanted. She hates the fact that her brother has sent this man to watch over her. She has only rented this 1-bedroom cabin. There's no room for him to even be there. And I love it because it's kind of has the element of enemies to lovers, but they're not actually enemies. It's just an antagonistic vibe between them. And then I just love the way that they just fit perfectly together. And he helps her kind of rediscover things that she's lost in her, you know, climb to fame. She had to, you know, follow the advice of certain people being like, oh, well, they're not looking for this type of song. They're not looking for this type of look. We need you to change this look. We need you to change your sound if you want to be famous. And a lot of her past, you know, struggling for money has informed her decisions to get to the place where she wants to be. And now she's feeling a little bit lost. And I just really like that story. The romance is fantastic. It had an equal amount of swoon and steam, and I'm just like, this is all that I ask for romances to be nowadays. I still love spicy scenes, but like I don't want at the expense of the swoon, and I feel like this book just does it so well. I was talking for way too long, so I had to change my battery. Let's continue. The next book I have is Resonant Surge by Nalini Singh. It's like book 22, 23 in the Side Changeling series, and you can't just jump into this book. I feel like part of the impact of the characters in the world is because I've been with the series so long, but also, I mean, some of the books in the more recent, you know, books of the series, they haven't hit me as hard as like the early books in the series, and I was kind of wondering whether or not the series is kind of like taken like a downturn where they weren't very interesting to me. But the past couple of books that she's written in the series have kind of reignited my interest in, well, not really my interest, but reignited my hope that the series isn't quite done yet, you know? And I really like this pairing. I like the story between the characters. It's very complicated to explain because of the dynamics of this urban fantasy world. It is a Psy and a Changeling pairing, which is one of my favorites. I love the Psy and Changelings together. The heroine isn't so closed off emotionally just because where we are in the story, Silence is not the same as Silence was in the beginning, so they don't have to hide their emotions anymore. The Psy do not have to hide their emotions anymore. But what makes this story very interesting is that she's this unknown factor because she apparently is the twin sister of a very powerful person in the Psy political arena that nobody even knew existed. And so the Changeling, our Changeling hero, is kind of half bodyguard, half there to spy on her because they're like, why did she suddenly appear on the scene? What has she been doing? We don't know anything about her. Is she dangerous? Is she coming here to mess with us and stuff? So he's a very friendly chaperone for her to have while she's in this country on a official martial business, errand basically. And she needs an escort because it's changeling territory. And I really love this dynamic. And I also really love a lot of the internal things that are going on between our hero and our heroine, because he's feeling her out. He's judging her mannerisms, the way that she's reacting to things. And he's like, she's genuine. This is real, okay? There's more than what meets the eye. And I just like the way that the relationship develops because the characters are insightful. They're not taking things at face value. They're not jumping to conclusions. They're not making these grandiose claims and being like, aha, I knew you were always evil. That leads to like a conflict that could have been avoidable if they weren't such an ass. I don't know. I have a real problem with authors making characters behave in a way that I'm just kind of like, that's such a ham-fisted way of making them behave to get them to the point where you want them to be at. There's really so many different ways that you can have conflict in a book without the characters getting into this big fight based around a misunderstanding. And that's what I appreciate about this book so much, is that Nalini Singh has a conflict, but it's not because the characters are misunderstanding each other, because they're both incredibly insightful. He's attuned to smells, he's attuned to body language, like that's how he can trust his instincts. Even though she might be presenting this certain front, he's like, no, I'm gonna dig deeper because I think that this is false. I think that she's hiding something, maybe not because she's being malicious, maybe there's something else going on. I want to get to the bottom of it. And she's very interesting. And so I just love the way that he handles that. And I'm just like, God, I love that. I like the subtlety. I like the nuance when it comes to their relationship. And Nalini Singh didn't take the easy route. So yeah, I appreciated that about this book. The next book that I read is Mr. Impossible by Loretta Chase. So I can't even remember. Maybe it was Gigi that recommended this book, but don't quote me on this. I was just scrolling through Instagram one day and I saw someone post that if you like The Mummy, you will like this book. I love The Mummy. Brendan Fraser was one of my childhood crushes, and still to this day, whenever I watch The Mummy, I'm like, swoon. I love this. I love this couple. Rick and Evie are just couple goals. Love it. And the action and adventure are super fun. So I was like, yeah, I want to read a historical romance that is like The Mummy. And also it's Loretta Chase. I love Loretta Chase. I haven't read a lot by Loretta Chase, but she's written one of my favorite historical romances. So yeah, let's get into it. And guys, it really is The Mummy. Like, our heroine's brother goes missing. He's very much like a Jonathan character from The Mummy, and she needs to find him. And so she saves our hero from jail in order to have like a guide to find her brother. She's also like an Egyptologist and stuff like that. Her brother has been publishing her works under his name because she can't, as a woman, publish her works. And so she has asked her brother to do this on her behalf because she wants to continue her works, and she's traveling with her brother. And she's actually the archaeologist and her brother's not really. So anyway, we have this very like cool, like kind of nerdy girl situation, and like tough, brawn, macho man. I'm the bodyguard protector. Like, you don't know how to handle yourself over here, and there's all these dangers, and I'm gonna save you from them. I love it. It's such a great dynamic. So anyway, Mr. Impossible truly is such a great mummy historical romance. And I'm just like, yeah, it was fantastic. It was 5 stars. I loved it. This new release, I wasn't like expecting it to be like as good as it was. Also because of the trope. So King of Greed is a third book in the Kings of Sin series. I liked King of Pride, but it was just like kind of an okay, like a generic romance for me. Like, it wasn't doing very much. Like, I loved King of Wrath. I was like, love. King of Pride, okay, fine. King of Greed, a little wary because it was kind of like a marriage in trouble romance, and also maybe a little bit second chance because the hero has fucked up and he needs to grovel. And I don't always like second chances, and but this is a unique situation where they're still married, and they've been married for like 10 plus years. They met in college and they've been together as he has grown his empire, but he's become a little bit money obsessed because he's grown up in poverty, and he's gotten to this point where, yeah, he's safe and secure, he's stable, like more than stable, he's like a billionaire, but he always feels like it could all slip away from him. So he becomes a workaholic, at the expense of his marriage. Like, he does not do anything with his wife anymore, and they were once very deeply in love. And she has been very unsatisfied with her marriage, and she's made it known that she's unsatisfied. And she told him, she's like, this is our, anniversary this year. I want you on this trip no matter what. And he forgets about it. Or like he knew about it, and then he chose to stay at the office because he was like, well, I can still make it. And then he gets so absorbed in work where he does forget to go home. And when he goes home, this moment, oh God, it was good, where he goes home expecting her to be there, and he just like, oh, well, maybe she's in the bath. And he notices like something's different, like what's happening? And then it finally clicks. Like when it clicks, it takes him a while. Then it clicks and he remembers, oh my God, I was supposed to go on an anniversary trip with her. She was waiting for me so that we can go to the airport, and she's not here. And then he notices her ring on the mantle, and then he starts freaking out because he truly does love his wife. He has just lost this work-life balance along the way. He has not given her the attention, or the marriage the attention that it needs. So he has to find a way to win her back. And I think that Ana Huang also has like the perfect balance of flashback scenes to just give us a glimpse of what their relationship was like and what the heroine is mourning, because they did have such a deep, lovely relationship. But she doesn't go too hard on the flashbacks. Like, we know that they were in love. She's told us. Getting those little glimpses just hammers at home how much of a betrayal it feels to the heroine that the hero doesn't seem to care about her anymore. And she's just like, I don't want to settle for this. I want to be happy. I don't want to be miserable missing my husband who doesn't seem to care. And she pays a lot more attention to the present day, where he needs to win her back, and the way that he goes about it, he's persistent. Like, she doesn't cave very easily. There's a couple moments in the story where I was feeling frustrated with her, but I also was very understanding. Like, of course you don't want to just let him back in so easily. I just want him to prove it. Like, she just wanted to be sure. Why would you risk it again? So anyway, I thought that it was very well done. It was such a good book. 5 stars. Then this one was a Christmassy one. So Some Winter's Evening is a novella by Aaron Langston, and this is the brother of the heroine from Forever Your Rogue. And I really liked him. He is a barrister or a lawyer, and so I didn't know what to expect like from his romance, and apparently he's a little bit awkward with the ladies. Like, he feels a lot more comfortable doing his like lawyerly thing, and he's on the road during Christmas time to go visit his sister and her kids, and he has to stop at an inn for the night. He's not paying attention, and he's just like eating and drinking in like the common area of the inn, and this woman approaches him and asks for something in a way that he thinks that she's propositioning him. And when he says like, oh no thank you, I'm not into all that, she dumps her or his ale on top of his head, and he's like, oh my God, what happened? And she's like, I am not a prostitute. What are you talking about? I was asking if I could like buy that pastry because you have like the last one and I'm starving. Like, I really wanted that pastry and it doesn't look like you're eating it. And how dare you think I'm a prostitute? And then he's like, oh my God, I did it again. I'm so socially awkward. And he's like falling over himself trying to apologize. And she realizes, oh, he's genuine. He really didn't. He misinterpreted what I said. There was no harm really done. And she can laugh about the situation. And then they kind of sit together and their relationship kind of develops from there, where they just have this nice little cozy dinner together, and the chemistry is popping like right off the bat between them. And what he doesn't know is that she's also traveling to become the governess to his nieces and nephews, which kind of creates a conflict of interest for her because she really needs this job and she doesn't want to get sacked because of her employer's brother kind of pursuing her, and it would be inappropriate. And anyway, I really love the way that this romance develops, and it was such a great novella, such a great cozy Christmas read too. I just thought it was fantastic. It was very well done. I'm always impressed when a novella can feel just as satisfying as a full-length book, because sometimes novellas can feel very short and like you didn't get enough time with the characters to actually develop a real relationship where you're like, yeah, this is a believable romance. This is a believable happily ever after. They are in love now. And I'm always impressed when an author can fit a entire story into a shortened form. And Aaron Langston did a fantastic job with that. Finally, we're gonna end with this one. So, P.S. You're Intolerable by Julia Wolf. I have read books by Julia Wolf, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, but she writes more like new adult bully romances under J. Wolf, I think. So I read some J. Wolf ones last year. And I haven't been into like the bully thing this year at all. So I wasn't really looking to read any more of hers. But Jen, knowing that I am such a sucker for a good romance that includes a single mom and then the hero just being fantastic with the kid or the child or whatever. And in this particular situation, it's a billionaire romance. Elliot owns this major corporation, and the heroine has interviewed for the secretary, executive assistant position for him, and apparently he's supposed to be like intolerable, like this beastly person to work for, and she lands the job, and he's very specific about certain things that he likes. He wants his schedule handwritten, even though that he has it like on his computer. He wants it handwritten on his desk every morning. So she writes his schedule, and at the very end she writes PS, and then she writes a little thing about like something that he did that day that was like intolerable, and she's like, PS, I hope that your pillows are warm at night, because who wants to sleep on a warm pillow at night? You want it to be cold. Anyway, and then she'll like cut it off, and she saves that little slip of paper in her drawer, and then she just puts the rest of the paper, like his schedule, on the desk. So like, it's her little secret. This is how she vents. She's very professional. She doesn't like let his annoying, exacting qualities get to her. She's always professional in front of him, but that's her way, that's her outlet. So anyway, he doesn't know that she's pregnant for the longest time. She needs the job. She knows she's pregnant while she's interviewing, and she's kind of disguising her pregnancy, and she doesn't get very big, first of all. And then he just kind of doesn't notice, and like other people notice. Anyway, it turns into, she kind of becomes a single mom, because at first she was having a baby with like a friend. He turns out to be a douchebag, and she's left in kind of dire straits. She's left in a house that's supposed to be, they were renovating together, and so the house is like mid-demolition, half done, half not done, and she just had the baby, and she's gone on maternity leave. And he realizes that, oh my god, I can't function without Catherine, like she's the best assistant that I've ever had. He decides to go check up on her. He like hates that she's on maternity leave because his life isn't running so smoothly, and sees that she's struggling, and he's like, I cannot let you live like this. I have many extra bedrooms. Like, come live at my house. And like, the relationship kind of like snowballs from there. And I just really love it. I really love it. Cause you just don't expect him, this kind of like ornery kind of asshole, to be a really great partner and also father figure. And I'm just like, God, it was perfect. So anyway, I love soft and fluffy things right now, guys. That's what I'm looking for. I'm so not into the angst at the moment. I don't want it. I don't want it at all. There's so much going on just all the time that I'm just like, I want cozy, warm, fluffy, soft things. That's what I'm interested in. So I gave this book 5 stars, and that's one of the last books that I read in December. And those are all the books that have made an impression on me for the past year. I can't believe that it's almost 2024, literally in 2 days. Hopefully I will be able to get this video edited tonight. It's my least favorite part of making videos, is editing them. It's not filming them. I love filming them. It's editing. I hate it. And when you have like limited amount of time to either read or talk about books or edit, it's like editing is on the bottom of my list. So anyway, I'm gonna try to get this video out as soon as possible. I can't wait to see what 2024 has in store. I do plan on making a video of all the books that I'm looking forward to in 2024, so I don't know, maybe you'll get that one soon as well. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye guys.